The Newberry Library exhibition, Mapping Outside the Lines, showcases how map makers have developed a wide variety of lines to bring our world to life. The exhibition features dozens of diagrams, drawings, engravings, and lithographs, the majority from the Newberry's map collections, which number in the hundreds of thousands. Mapping Outside the Lines is free, open to all, and runs through February 14th, 2026 at the Newberry Library. For more information, visit newberry.org. Make sure you stay tuned after the interview for a quick conversation sponsored by Deborah's Place about an upcoming community conversation about supporting the unhoused in Chicago. Today on CityCast Chicago, millions across the city and state are still waiting for SNAP benefits to pay out for November as the federal government shutdown stretches into yet another month. We hear from the Chicago Food Depository on just how much strain this is putting on Chicagoans who rely on these benefits every single day. It's Monday, November 10th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Ruby Ferguson is the Senior Director of Community Engagement at the Greater Chicago Food Depository. Ruby, welcome back to CityCast Chicago.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
No, we really appreciate you making time after all of this uncertainty surrounding SNAP food benefits. The number of Chicagoans, people across the state and country who have been struggling over the last few weeks, locked in confusion as this administration ups its cruelty during this government shutdown. There was some bright news when two federal judges ruled that the Trump administration would have to fund the 61-year-old program created during the Great Depression. And the administration announced that they would partially fund the benefits this month. At the time of recording, have payments actually started going out to families?
No, they have not. So it is a win for advocacy, but for all of our neighbors who are waiting for their benefits to load, we're prepared that that might not happen sometime soon. There's going to be an administrative burden to get those processed. And so I want us to see it as an advocacy win, but acknowledge that we need to still show up for our neighbors and make sure they're getting food on the table.
Yeah, you were talking to food insecure people every single day across this city. How has this impacted families and individuals in Chicago and Cook County who really rely on SNAP benefits for the most basic necessity, right? We need food and water.
This change with the government shutdown, one, is unprecedented. There has been no time in the United States history since SNAP has been implemented where SNAP has not been funded in a government shutdown. And so this is just evidence that hunger is a policy choice, and this is a choice to not make sure, in the case of Illinois, that 2 million people have access to go shop at the grocery store. And we can get into all the work reporting requirements and all of those things that evolve from there, but it is heavy. It's loaded. This is at a time where folks are experiencing increased federal presence across our city, and even just going to the grocery store, going to the pantry, it can be overwhelming. And so this just adds another layer of folks trying to make ends meet and get food on the table.
On one hand, it has been really inspiring, motivating. It's been really great to see how quickly Chicagoans mobilized to protect each other across the various ways we're being attacked right now. But at the same time, I am seeing a growth of dehumanization. I am seeing more videos about people sort of blaming this on recipients of SNAP benefits. There's a lot of victim blaming, a lot of shaming. And the work that you do, how have you seen that narrative change or grow during this really chaotic period?
You know, I might have a blind eye to some of the negative narrative around folks who receive SNAP. And that blind eye is because I have family members who have participated or on SNAP. And oftentimes the stories that we think about SNAP recipients is this very narrow-minded focus, right? So when we talk about work reporting requirements, there's this assumption that people are just sitting at home and wanting to receive benefits. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if anybody has been to the grocery store recently. I don't know if anybody has looked at the rate of inflation compared compared to the increase in minimum wage. But a lot of people are not receiving a thriving wage, meaning that they have enough to save for their family, to meet the needs for their family, et cetera.
This is that welfare queen story that Ronald Reagan and Reaganomics really pushed in this country. And a lot of the erosion of public goods can be tracked back to that administration and the ways that sort of neoliberal administrations, whether they were Democrat or Republicans, have not really boosted up or protected those social safety nets.
Yeah. Where we are at is SNAP is an essential safety net program. What it does, and there is evidence, it lifts people out of poverty. People are making decisions between paying for medications or putting food on the table or paying their electricity bill or making sure their kids have something to eat after school. The other thing that I've been offering that we forget is SNAP supports our businesses. So for every dollar that is spent on SNAP, $1.5 in economic activity is generated. It creates jobs. It supports consumer packaged good companies, right? Like the food you're buying has to be prepared somewhere. And so there's this big misconception that it is like a pantry. It is not a pantry. It is a way for people to participate in our economy. And for every one meal that the food bank can put on the table, SNAP puts 9. And I'm going to say that again because I like that needs to hit. For every one meal a food bank can put on the table, SNAP puts 9. So food banks across the country are not equipped to respond to this, and they're not supposed to be. Folks are supposed to be able to go to the grocery store.
As of right now, we have no sense of when the government shutdown is going to end. We don't know if the Trump administration is going to comply with the court orders. Do we have a sense of what's going to happen after the month of November?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of question marks right now. There are some things that are certain, especially around the changes that are happening to SNAP overall. So I mentioned the work reporting requirements. So essentially, if you are between the ages of 18 and 64, there's always been a requirement that you needed to meet a certain amount of working hours, whether that's working, volunteering, or participating in some kind of education or employment program. Previously, the state of Illinois and other states could sign on to a waiver where that wasn't a requirement to receive your benefits. In the bill that passed in July, that waiver was removed. And so now, for the first time, a lot of folks are going to have to meet those reporting requirements. What those requirements look like is that you are working, volunteering, or in a training or education program for at least 80 hours per month. And that you'll have to be able to record those things and show them. This is an impact that is putting administrative burden on folks. So it is not that they are needing to work for the first time, but when we think about our gig workers or people who operate on a shift, and so, oh my goodness, now I'm at 75 hours this month, that was unbeknownst to me, or I cut hair for a living, or I do these other jobs that maybe aren't easily definable. That's going to be who is impacted. What is also interesting in this change is that previously, if you had a child 18 or under in the household, you were waived from meeting those benefits. They dropped that age to 14. So now our families with kiddos in the house where the oldest kid is 14, or the youngest kid, they're going to have to meet those work reporting requirements. And then the expansion of age in older adults, it used to be in your 50s, now it's in your 60s that you now have to meet these work reporting requirements. There is data that has shown that when you implement work reporting requirements, participation in the program goes down.
Again, this is something that it feels directly related to this false narrative of the people who are receiving SNAP benefits, who benefit from social services in this country. And again, the face of that is often sort of painted as sort of Black and brown residents, but white residents across the country receive SNAP benefits.
Yeah, what I will just offer is this is an American problem. And that's why I even bring it back home sometimes to that business piece of like, this is going to impact all of us, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of race. When I first came on, we were thinking about how we're going to increase food equity and increase access to food businesses and retailers. There's going to be an impact to grocery stores that are heavily reliant on SNAP, not having those benefits each month. And so families shouldn't have to make a choice between medication or food. And that's what this might be forcing now.
Christmas always comes early around Chicago, and if you're already dreaming of snow, Paramount Theater in Aurora is here with the holiday cheer. You know, snow, snow, snow. You don't get it yet? Well, how about this? Irving Berlin's White Christmas is playing from November 12th through January 11th. It's the beloved story you know and love from the classic movie, done with that Paramount flair that makes it an unforgettable experience. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're in for a great time. There's going to be epic dance numbers, spectacular costumes, pageantry, spectacle. I mean, come on. You know, the best things happen while you're dancing. The best things happen while you're dancing. Irving Berlin's White Christmas is a family favorite that can bring generations together to celebrate the magic of the holidays. Get your tickets today at ParamountAurora.com. When you're dancing.
You know, when most of us want to learn a new language, it's not because we're dying to memorize grammar tables or ace a quiz. It's because we actually want to speak it out in the real world with real people. And that's what Babbel is great at, getting you there fast. Hey, it's Michael Zibiak, Chief Revenue Officer here at CityCast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after graduation, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. And right now, my Spanish is, let's just say, very high school level. Shout out to Senior Patty from Syosset High School. You tried. When we're in Spain, I'd love to do more than just ask where the bathroom is. I want to be able to chat with locals, order tapas, and actually connect, not just read the menu and point. So I'm starting with Babbel. It's all about small steps, big wins, and it's super easy to fit into my life. Honestly, with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit right into my day, between meetings or over my morning coffee. I'm excited to pick up some real-world Spanish before we go, so we can experience Spain like locals, not tourists. Doesn't that sound better? Right now, Babbel's got a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/CityCast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
And when we first met 4 years ago, we were still in the thick of the pandemic. We were talking about grocery stores shutting down in Black and brown South and West Side neighborhoods at an alarming rate. And at that point, right, SNAP was, still available. Benefits were still being paid out. Given that all of those problems remain, grocery stores consistently are closing down. Food equity is still a problem. And now you have, people's number one source of funding being cut off. I guess my question was, is it safe to say that things have only gotten worse since you've started in this role?
It's a loaded question, but an important question. And I think progress is never linear. And what I have been holding on to in this moment around SNAP, at least, is some of these systems weren't meant to support us in the beginning. And is there a world in which we can imagine what this could look like in the best way possible? And so what I offer is more people are interested in SNAP than they ever have been. Right. And so folks are now, what are the work reporting requirements? What does that mean? What is a partial benefit? Right. Like, people are inquiring and understanding more. And we are lucky, though the federal environment is not one that is conducive right now for policies that we're striving for. We are lucky to be in a state.
The federal government is not conducive for policies that we are striving for.
But we're lucky to be in a state where we have colleagues who are imagining how to implement these changes with dignity and compassion. And so if at the core of what we're thinking about is our humanity and how we come up with solutions around that, I think that shows up. And then my other piece is in Chicago, there's so many dope things that are happening, right? Like when we were talking, 40 Acres didn't exist. And now Liz is doing incredible things in Austin. And there's a gorgeous grocery store that people can go to. And Dion is everywhere all the time and just fighting the good fight, right? There are all these incredible things happening. And so I don't want us to get lost in this federal chaos. And like remind ourselves that Chicago is resilient. Chicago is going to come up with solutions. And even how we're like figuring out what it looks like to respond to these snap changes in this moment are reflective of our commitment to Chicago showing up for Chicago.
For a lot of Chicagoans who may not think about SNAP benefits on a day-to-day or month-to-month basis, who are now reading these stories, hearing these episodes, right? This may just be something they are paying attention to this month or last month. But like you said, you all have been looking at this for months and months. How exactly has the Greater Chicago Food Depository been preparing for this moment?
First and foremost, it is us and our 850 partners across the city that are responding in this moment. And so a few layered approaches, right? In the immediate, people are still going to need food. So we have been making sure that our partners have additional food at the pantries, shelters, and soup kitchens that we support. We have stood up some Saturday distribution. So if you go on our Find Food tool on chicagosfoodbank.org, find food, there are distributions on Saturdays in areas where there's the highest concentration of SNAP participation. So that way you can go pick up a box of food and have some additional food there. And then we're thinking about the policy changes. And so thinking about how we implement the policy changes, how we're educating folks about these changes. So conversations like this are happening across the city with a whole bunch of us are like, do you know all of these changes are happening? And I haven't even talked about the cost sharing and that we're going to have to fight to keep the program intact in a few years because the state of Illinois is going to have to pay close to $800 million potentially to keep the program intact. We're building awareness. We're thinking about the policy changes. We're thinking about how our neighbors have food in the immediate. We're trying to come up with creative solutions to connect folks to retailers so that way they're continuing to be a part of our food system and engaging with it. And all of that is happening with incredible partners across the city, right? Like the food depository does not exist without our partners and the other food justice leaders that are showing up in this moment.
100%. You know, how does someone access a food bank? Like, how does it work? Do you need an ID or an appointment? Can you just show up? How do you find one close by?
So folks can call our main line to get connected with someone on our neighbor services team. That phone number is 773-247-3663. And those incredible humans will either be able to support you in answering SNAP questions, connect you to other resources, and then most importantly, help identify one of our amazing partners across the city that's closest to you that meets the needs that you have. So the Food Depository is Chicago's food bank. We are where all the food comes, and then we distribute that out to all of our partners who do the direct service and connect with neighbors every day to make sure that they're getting access to their food. And so either that Find Food tool or that number I shared with you, you'll be able to identify the closest pantry, soup kitchen, shelter, whatever that program is near you.
When you come in, do you get to select the things you want? Are you given like just a box of things and it's like, hope you can make use of this? Like, what's the system? Because I know different organizations across the city provide different types of resources, from love fridges to produce boxes.
Yeah, so a good amount of our pantry partners have what we call a choice style model, where you are able to shop. There's an indication of the number of items that you can take, but you can go around and pick what you want with your shopping cart and be able to walk out. The distributions that we're doing on Saturdays at those 10 locations that I mentioned are a box where you can come and pick up the box. That's intentional. The vision for Saturdays was a point of efficiency. How can we make sure that we can get people in and out on Saturday as quickly as possible in this kind of emergency moment, especially with the increased federal presence, so that way folks aren't waiting in line for an extended amount of time. IDs are not required. We do use a service where we register you and give you a card, and you're able to go to any of our pantries within our network with that same registration, but you are not required to share ID in order to do that.
Do you have to share? Because I know right now there are Chicago restaurants or organizations providing services for specifically people who haven't been able to get their SNAP benefits. When you go to a food bank, do you have to show a SNAP card? Do you have to prove that you're food insecure? How does that work?
This is what I want to offer. Food insecurity is not always fixed. Any of us can have a moment of food insecurity. So whether you are working or not, whatever your income is, that is not something that you have to provide proof when you're coming to a pantry. Pantries are the emergency food system. Those are for emergency moments. And sometimes those emergency moments last for longer, but they're for where you can access food. SNAP is different. SNAP is a safety net program. SNAP lasts longer. That's why you're proving your income and you're receiving these benefits over time. But our pantries do not require, pantries, soup kitchen, shelters, any of the programs don't require that you have proof of income.
They say, when people's healthcare is threatened, they just stop going to the hospital. When people's food security is threatened, they don't just stop eating. But I know there may be people who are listening who may feel shame or just blame themselves or look inward. Like when they come up against a moment of food insecurity, what would you say to someone who's listening who may feel anxiety or discomfort around, visiting the food depository or linking up with one of your various partners?
I actually talked with one of my elders this weekend who, when I told her that I was coming to talk about the changes to SNAP, she mentioned that she used to be too ashamed and then she finally participated in the program. A reflection point for me is that it is a system that has failed you. It is not you that have failed you, right? And so this is a moment for us to come together, and asking for help is one of the hardest things to do. I've had to ask for, we've all had to ask for help before. But on the other side of that is connection to community and realizing that you are not alone. Anyone can experience food insecurity. This is not unique to any class of human being, right? This is a human experience. And so just know that there's community at the door and there's people there willing to welcome you, and that it's not a reflection of your success as an individual, but rather the direction our society is going in, and that we need to come together in this moment to think about how we make a change.
What can Chicagoans do to help and get involved?
One, always and forever, support your local business, support your local retailer. Your dollars are your vote. Your dollars show what you care about. So going up and supporting and continuing to support those retailers is going to be incredibly important in this moment. You can volunteer with us. You can volunteer with a pantry or a soup kitchen or a shelter in your area. Some folks are setting up home delivery. You can think about how you're taking meals home to folks. If you have the capacity in this moment to donating to organizations that are aligned with your values, whether that is the Food Depository or one of our partners, to make sure that you're supporting this work moving forward is incredibly important. But then what's most important is lifting your voice. This is going to be a long game, and there are a lot of changes that come with this. And so being able to share with your friends of do you know what's actually going on with SNAP, and that there are bigger changes? And do you know that this is not, food banks can't do this alone, and that it's a benefit to our economy, and starting to share that is going to be so incredibly important. And then get ready to vote. Our vote is going to matter a lot. It always matters a lot. And hunger, like I said, is a policy choice. And so, we need to show up and make sure that we're making choices that benefit all of us moving forward. One
of the reasons I met you was because the mayor at the time, Lightfoot, sort of appointed you to this new panel that was supposed to really tackle food insecurity and equity. Switching into this new administration, has that work remained at the top of mind for this current mayor?
Absolutely. The Food Equity Council still exists. I've been working very closely with all of my city colleagues this past week to figure out how we're making sure Chicagoans know about all of these changes and where to get resources. You can find a lot of that information on protectchicago.gov and all the changes to SNAP there. Since then, we released a Good Food Fund. We implemented the Community Growers Program. We've thought about how to connect more growers to vacant land using Shy Block Builder. So the momentum is still there. And there's still a commitment in this administration to thinking about how we support food equity at the core of what we do.
Ruby Ferguson is the Senior Director of Community Engagement at the Greater Chicago Food Depository. Ruby, I really appreciate you making time, and good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Up next, we have that conversation sponsored by Deborah's Place about one of their upcoming events.
Hey, it's CityCast Chicago executive producer Simone Alicea here. Deborah's Place has been helping women in Chicago find stability for 40 years, offering not just housing, but a real sense of belonging. I'm talking with board president Rosie Drumgoole about what makes their approach unique and how her own story inspires her work. Rosie, welcome to CityCast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So for listeners who might not know, what is Deborah's Place and how does it support women experiencing homelessness here in Chicago?
Our mission is to support women who are experiencing homelessness in Chicago. We are Chicago's largest and longest running provider of permanent supportive housing for single unaccompanied women experiencing homelessness. We've been doing this for 40 years at this point. We empower women to achieve housing stability, independence, and healing through housing, supportive services, education, and community. And that's why 90% of the residents remain housed after they are placed.
At Deborah's Place, y'all say that housing is the beginning, not the end of the journey. What does that mean in practice for the women that Deborah's Place serves?
It's this idea that housing is a right. Housing should come first. And the way that Deborah's Place approaches this is that, hey, you should get housing no matter what. Everybody deserves a home. It's a trauma-informed approach. It's a harm reduction approach. And at the end of the day, it leads to long-term stability. When we think about this population, right, single, unaccompanied women, right, like they are so vulnerable and they have so many systemic barriers, and they have, some of them come with, disabilities, mental disabilities, physical disabilities. They deserve belonging. They deserve a place to lay their head. They deserve a place to call home. And we all do. And once you have that foundation, you have that bedrock of, at the end of the day, you're going to have somewhere to sleep that's safe and that's yours. You can then start to thrive and grow.
Rosie, you bring such a personal perspective to this work, both as board president and someone with lived experience. How does that shape the way you lead and connect with the women that you serve?
I know what it's like to to not have a place to put your head at night, not know where you're going to sleep tonight. I know what it's like to have all your belongings be in a garbage bag. When I then sit and I can talk to some of those young women. And so just having that conversation and being able to draw their personalities out and see how they light up, right? Like that just kind of motivates me to continue to want to advocate for this organization and that work. Because I identify with them. I can see myself in them. And honestly, like all of us are, just one something away from, being maybe in the same situation that they're in, and we just don't even know it. And so, it's one of those things that is just very near and dear to my heart. This is the organization that, I wish, I had access to when I was a young woman who was experiencing homelessness. And so to be able to work with the organization, to be able to provide support, whether it's financial or whatever the case may be, visibility, just, feels like something I'm giving to, little Rosie.
Deborah's Place is hosting a community conversation at Slant of Light Bookstore on November 12th. What can people expect from that event, and how can they get involved in supporting your mission?
You can get involved by showing up, come out, come meet folks. You can expect it to be a good time. Ain't no party like a Deborah's Place party. It'll be a really good time. We'll have some really good conversations, learn a little bit more about the organization. Of course, this is our 40th anniversary. We want to continue to be doing this for, another 40 years or for however long that, folks need us to be doing this. And so also just donations, right? Like donating to this organization provides so much. Again, the staff does so much and there's so much need. And so, taking, even if it's just $4 out of your pocket and providing that to this organization, they're going to take it and they're going to run with it. So yeah, 1, show up November 12th. And 2, if you can't make it, sending a little love through some monetary support, I think would be the best way to support this organization.
Rosie Drumgoole is the board president for Deborah's Place. Rosie, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Deborah's Place is hosting a community conversation at Slant of Light Bookstore on November 12th. It's a chance to learn more about their mission and the women they serve. You can find details and ways to get involved at deborahsplace.org. We're also going to have a link to that in our show notes as well.
Before we get out of here, some good news. I just want to show some love to Nakama Toys of Algeld, California. Not only did they hook me up with the absolute perfect Dragon Ball Z statue for my brother, but also they're running a food drive for local food banks in the city, like so many other amazing small businesses. And that ends today. I just want y'all to know, for all of the small businesses and the restaurants in and around Chicago that are showing up for your neighbors, we see you, we love you, and we appreciate you. Feel free to reach out to us at 773-780-0246 if you know of another business or restaurant that's showing up for people in this time of need. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.